They usually think of confidence, leadership, or somebody who knows who they are. But today, I'm not talking about pride. I'm talking about knowing what God placed inside of you and having confidence in who God says you are. When I think about I'm him, I think about the story of David. David had to stand before Goliath. Everyone else saw a giant. His brothers doubted him. The king questioned him, and people laughed. But David knew something they didn't know. He knew who he was because he knew whose he was. In today's language, David could have looked at that giant and said, "They don't see it yet, but I'm him." Not because he was arrogant, but he knew God had prepared him for that moment. Just like David faced Goliath, through God's strength, we can face the giants in our lives through Christ. There are three things that I want you to remember. First thing I want you to remember that I'm him means I can face fear. The enemy wants us discouraged and ready to quit. He wants us doubting ourselves before we even step up to the plate. David could have been afraid when he saw Goliath because everyone else was. But David remembered what God had brought him through. He had faced lions and bears, and God delivered him every time. During this, you may hear me talk about baseball a lot because it is one of my favorite sports. And through my dad, where's he at? Right there, I have learned that it is a great teacher of life. I remember I was struggling with fear myself. I was having trouble staying in the batter's box. Fear had started taking over my mind. At First Baptist, I shared how I was battling that fear and how my mom wrote on my bathroom mirror to help encourage me and overcome that fear. The scripture that I would read most was, "For God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind." Every day I looked at that mirror and reminded myself of what God said about me. Whew. Even though I struggled, 2 games later, after telling that story, I finally got my hit. That taught me something. Fear can be big, but faith is bigger. David faced a giant. I faced fear. You may face challenges of your own, but when God is with you, fear doesn't get the final word. So when I say I'm him, I'm saying fear does not control me. God does. The second thing I want you to remember is that I'm him means pressure will not break you. In baseball, pressure shows up when the game is on the line. Bases loaded, full count, bottom of the ninth inning. Pressure reveals what's inside of you. But pressure does not mean you're losing. Sometimes pressure is preparing you. David was overlooked by people, but chosen by God. Before he ever wore a crown, he had to face a giant. While everybody else was focused on how big Goliath was, David was focused on how big God was. Some of us are facing giants today, giants of fear, giants of low self esteem, giants of doubt, and giants of disappointment. But like God stood, no, but just like David stood before Goliath and declared victory before the battle even started, we can stand in faith knowing God is with us. That's what I'm him means. Not because I think I'm better than anyone else, but but because God has called me, equipped me, and prepared me for this moment. The last thing I want you to remember is I'm him means I won't quit. Every baseball player strikes out sometimes. Even the best players fail. But great players don't throw away the glove after one bad game. In life, we can't quit either. David wasn't perfect. He had victories and failures, but he never stopped trusting God. So if I fall, I'll get back up. If I fail, I'll get back up. If life knocks me down, I'll get back up. Because when God puts purpose inside of you, quitting is not an option. The same God who helped David defeat Goliath is the same God who helps us get back up every time we fall. And because of that, I can confidently say I'm him. As I close, remember this. David wasn't the biggest. David wasn't the strongest. David wasn't the most experienced soldier, but he was the one God chose. Sometimes people won't see what God sees in you. They may only see your mistakes, but God sees your potential. But God sees where you are, where you're going. So when I say I'm him, I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm saying God has a purpose for my life. I'm saying God has prepared me for this moment. I'm saying through every fear, every challenge, every giant, and every obstacle, God is with me. You may take some strikes in your life. You may have had some bad innings. You may facing a giant right now. But the game is not over. There is still purpose in you, still strength in you, still greatness in you. Because God is with you. When fear comes, when pressure comes, and when giants stand in your way, you can confidently say, I'm him or I'm her.